Catholicism is meant to mold us into a new creation. St. Paul acknowledged this in the second reading. I am already being poured out like a libation, and the time for my departure is at hand. I have competed well. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. He was about to be martyred for saying yes to God and no to himself, the world, and the Roman government. Catholicism involves a struggle to be reshaped by truth, and not something or someone else. As Americans, we are very passionate about freedom. However, the biblical definition of freedom is not that we are free from something, but free for something. Authentic freedom allows us to do something good with our life, namely, to be reshaped into another Christ. When Thomas Jefferson penned the Declaration of Independence, he believed that we were a nation founded on the idea that God-given truths define us. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Humans vary in strength, wealth, and intellect, so the only way that we can be equal is if God exists, and if the greatest thing that defines us is the fact that we are children of the same Heavenly Father. So where are we as a nation now? I think Pope Francis's visit to our country and his address to Congress hold the key to understanding our current situation. Freedom is a double-edged sword that can lead us closer to God or closer to self-destruction. Therefore, the Pope highlighted 4 examples of authentic freedom: Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., Dorothy Day, and Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton in particular was free, but he originally chose a path of self-indulgence and worldliness. Later, Merton had a religious awakening and became a Trappist monk. Pope Francis was asking us to ponder how Merton became so much more when he opened himself to the possibility that God was calling him to a better path and fullness of life. Merton had the freedom to say yes to God's possibility, and so do we. As we face another polarizing presidential election, we must distinguish between their individual egos and the policies put forth that may be evil. Archbishop Charles Chaput of Philadelphia said, "We don't have the luxury of cynicism and withdrawal in this election, because too much is at stake. When we are tempted to shake our heads at the candidates, remember that in a democracy, our leaders are a projection of the people. This means that our personal conversion and our freedom to say yes to God's path are imperative to making a better America." St. Augustine wisely pointed out that we cannot complain about the times, for he said, "We are the times." Jefferson pictured a nation that was full of life, liberty, and genuine happiness. But instead we are a nation wounded by infidelity, promiscuity, gender confusion, divorce, egotism, and pornography. This is a recipe for destruction. Archbishop Chaput said that we have become a dysfunctional culture of frustrated and wounded people, increasingly incapable of permanent commitments, self-sacrifice, and sustained intimacy, and unwilling to face the reality of our own problems. This has political consequences, he said. People unwilling to rule their appetites will be ruled by them, and eventually they'll be ruled by someone else. Ouch. So what is the answer? It is to use our freedom to be reshaped by Christ. Politics are not like they used to be. Democratic President John F. Kennedy rightly put the responsibility on the citizens to make this country better, when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And across the board, we used to stand up for life. Prior to the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision, Democratic Senator Ted Kennedy used to stand up for unborn life when he wrote, Legalization of abortion on demand is not in accordance with the value which our civilization places on human life. Wanted or unwanted, I believe that human life, even at its earliest stages, has certain rights which must be recognized. The right to be born, the right to love, the right to grow old. When history looks back at this era, it should recognize this generation as the one which cared for human beings enough to halt the practice of war, to provide a decent living for every family, and to fulfill its responsibility to its children from the very moment of conception. Certainly we can see the Catholic coming out in both of these Kennedys, but political priorities have changed much since then. Archbishop Chaput said, "There can never be anything progressive in killing an unborn child, or standing aside tolerantly while others do it. In every abortion, an innocent life always dies." He pointed out that there are other pressing social issues that we care about as Catholics. But he continued, trying to reason or imply them into having the same moral weight is a debasement of Christian thought. The truth is, we need the humility of the tax collector in the gospel, who went to the temple to ask for forgiveness. We are all complicit in our current political mess. In his address to Congress, Pope Francis shared Thomas Merton's struggle to become free. Merton wrote, "I came into the world, free by nature, in the image of God. I was nevertheless the prisoner of my own violence and my own selfishness, in the image of the world into which I was born. That world was the picture of hell, full of men like myself, loving God and yet hating him, born to love him, living instead in fear of hopeless self-contradictory hungers. As we go to vote, remember the wisdom of St. Francis de Sales. Those who cannot stay in their littleness will lose their greatness."